Okay, so we should be going live now. So bear with me. Right now we're just waiting for Kazoo to get some water, so that's why I have this screen on here. But the cameras will go on momentarily. But while we wait for Kazoo to fully get ready, guys, could you guys let me know how everything is looking and sounding? Let me know if you hear background music. Let me know if you hear my voice. That would be appreciated. Hey there, Kazoo.
Hi. Are you live?
We're live, but I haven't turned on the cameras yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Frank Caves, for pointing that out. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, Kazoo, I'll show our cameras to the world. Just checking the chat here. DE Fox, I see you're already here modding. Thank you very much, my friend. I haven't been able to get to your messages on Twitter, but I did see them. I'll respond later, but there's definitely been some interesting things coming out. We'll be touching on a number of things, actually. I mean, I guess I'll just go over the topics now.
You can show the camera.
Okay. All right. So there we go. Camera should be there. Everything should be visible.
Hello.
So guys, if you don't know who I am, I'm On Just Restart. It's a On Just Restart podcast we do every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about Nintendo. And this week, I got Kazoo from TheYellowKazoo. How you doing?
Hello. And we have Cappy here as well. Cappy.
Cappy's there as well. And I see you brought that epic Skyward Sword shirt.
I did.
Ready to talk about Skyward Sword tonight?
You mentioned that when I released my unboxing video yesterday. So, Cappy, don't bite me. So, I thought that, that's what I should wear on the podcast.
I think it was a good choice. It's a good choice because, as you may be able to tell from the title and everything else, we're going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD tonight at nauseum. We're going to be talking about our impressions and all the different things related to it. We'll be taking questions of what you guys think and all of that we're going to be talking about tonight. The big focus is Skyward Sword, but we will be talking about a few other things. We got an announcement from Valve about the Steam Deck, which looks similar to the Nintendo Switch, and there have been comparisons made. So we're going to be kind of comparing the two a little bit and just kind of talking about if this impacts Switch in any way. And we're also going to talk about some Metroid news because we have gotten some Metroid news. We got Report Volume 3 from Metroid Dread. So we'll be talking about that a little bit. But also we got another rumor that Metroid Prime Trilogy HD is real and Nintendo's simply waiting to release it, which isn't really new information, but it's kind of like just the same thing again. Affirmation of the information, I guess. But we're going to be talking about all that today and whatever else you guys bring up in the chat, because I'm sure there have been other things that have come up that you guys would love to talk about. So that is what we're doing tonight. Now, guys, if you haven't seen Kazoo before, she also is a Nintendo channel, talks about a lot of things and plays a lot of games. And like, for example, you had your little vlog unboxing video yesterday for Skyward Sword.
It was an unboxing vlog. Yes, so that was pretty epic. So you guys should go check that out on my channel after this podcast.
Yeah, her channel is linked in the description below. But let me check in the chat here, and guys, just let me know if everything is looking and sounding okay again. But I'm just gonna check in the chat here, see how everyone's doing. Eva Luggy, I was more hyped for Metroid Dread than Breath of the Wild 2 during E3. Glad to see Samus back in the headlines, alright? Metroid definitely has been getting more of a focus from Nintendo, and that is very exciting to me. Ice Sonic, Skyward Sword HD is so good. I've been enjoying it. I've been playing it. I'm just still like entering the first dungeon, so I'm not like super far into it yet, but I've spent a few hours already on it, just trying to get acquainted to the controls and the game itself, and trying to come up with my own personal way of playing it, because there's the button controls, there's the motion controls, and there are different options you can kind of play around with there. So yeah, I've been enjoying the game so far, but we're going to be talking about that tonight for sure. Frank Caves, Prime 4 will be Game of the Year. I think there's a really good chance of that, but which Game of the Year? It ain't going to be this year, probably not next year either, but maybe 2023? I could see that. Now, you know, some people might argue maybe holiday 2022, but I mean, given everything else we've been saying, like for example, Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out in 2022, like, and I don't know if that's gonna be an early game, so if that's gonna be a big holiday release, and there's other things, I'm not sure. There's definitely a lot to sort of sift through with that. But what do you think, Kazoo? Do you think Prime 4 is gonna be a Game of the Year game whenever it does eventually come out?
Could, you know, it's I mean, I know a lot of people are very excited for it, but it also seems like Metroid is a little bit more niche. So I don't know if it would have that wide appeal. Oh, okay, bye, Cappy. I don't know if it would have the wide appeal that that Game of the Year would require.
Right. Metroid has been a much smaller franchise than things like a Super Mario Odyssey or like a Breath of the Wild, but I would argue that Metroid Prime 4 is going to push Metroid into that realm. From a quality perspective, from a length or scope perspective, if you look at the previous Prime games, they were right up there with the big Super Mario or Legend of Zelda games, but it didn't have that mainstream appeal, right, to your point. But if you look at what's happening with Metroid Dread right now, there are reports for Metroid Dread every couple weeks, right? It's just a little bit similar to like the Smash updates we've seen in the past, where like they like to give us a little bit of more information on the game every week or so. So we're getting that for Metroid Dread. It is the launch title for Switch OLED this October. It did have 2 Treehouse segments, the opening and the closing segment, and a developer diary and Nintendo's E3. So I do feel like they are trying to push things here, right? So if Metroid Dread does well, and they follow that up with a Prime Trilogy maybe next year, and then they have this big marketing push for Prime 4, and Retro Studios and Nintendo are very successful in reviving this gameplay style and modernizing it, and it's something that is ambitious and maybe even a little innovative, and it just kind of makes that, it takes that Metroid Prime style of gameplay, but it makes it customizes it in a way that perhaps hits that mainstream appeal just a little bit more. Thanks to the way social media works now, people tend to appreciate quality games now more than they used to. I think there's a good chance Prime 4 could at least be a contender. And it is a bit of a politics game, right? It's not straight up quality that will always get a game to win Game of the Year, say at the Game Awards, right? But there are different award shows in general, and I do feel like Prime 4 is...
There are different award shows.
Right. But Prime 4, I think, is a strong contender. But there are a few hoops it has to get through before we can talk about it being... Well, we can talk about it, right? But before it actually ends up being Game of the Year, there are a few hoops. Like coming out. They've got to be finished and come out. That's a big one.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, like actually releasing. How about that? Pretty much. Yeah.
Someday.
One of these years.
One of these years.
I wonder when they're going to give us the next update on when it's going to come out.
Well, right now this year they're focused on Metroid Dread, right? And then I feel like next year there's an opportunity for Nintendo to like unveil the game and how it looks and plays. I could see us getting maybe like a teaser trailer, right? Maybe something to the effect of what maybe we got for Breath of the Wild 2 this year. Right, so like, something that gives us some story elements, some gameplay elements, and they tell us we're aiming for 2023. Like, that would be, maybe we get something like that at E3 next year, right? Like, I could kind of see that, and at some point next year, maybe they finally confirm Prime Trilogy. But we're not talking about Metroid yet, so let's just get through the chat here, and we'll come back to that. But let's see here. Evil Loogie Academy, you looking a lot like Link. I'm gonna take that as a compliment, so thank you. Macro, hello, how are you? Ronnie Fazio, hey there. Nintendo, hello. I'm a sandwich. How you doing? Nonsense nerd. Hey there, man. Thank you. Yeah, we got past 10K not too long ago, so you know that's definitely a big deal. I'm very appreciative that you guys like watching this stuff. So, thanks.
Deal indeed.
Sweet Life of Dio Brando and Brandon White. I think they're trying to shout you out, Kazoo.
Oh. Where?
There's
what?
I don't know. Somewhere in the chat.
Somewhere in the chat. From who? Oh yeah. Oh, Sweet Life of Dio Brando. What up? How you doing? And Super Chris, how you doing?
Super Chris, hello. Mackerel added me. If we do get actual Switch Plus next year, do you think we'll get Bluetooth capability? If that's a big if, right?
It already has Bluetooth capability because how?
Well, like you can't. Yeah, the controllers use Bluetooth technology, some variant of it, I guess, but like you can't plug in or connect like Bluetooth headphones, for example. That would be nice, right? I think that would go a long ways towards improving the audio situation with Switch.
That's true.
And the thing is, I think it could be as simple as an update. Go on, Kazoo.
Sorry, the Switch OLED it's supposed to have enhanced audio
from the stereo, right? But like, I guess what would be nice is if we could put in headphones. Because, all right, like so here's the problem, right? You see this? I could plug in earphones right here, and that'll be fine, right? If I have like an audio jack earphones, but a lot of earphones aren't even like that anymore. So there's that to consider. But if I put this in my dock, and let's say I want to sit back like 8-10 feet, you know, I can't, and I want to use like a headset or something to give me like a nice audio quality, or if I want to play with, you know, so other people won't be bothered by the audio of my television, I don't have that option if I'm going to be sitting away from it. I have to be like right in front with earphones plugged into the Switch while it's docked right in front of the television. So for like, so in handheld mode, I guess it's fine, but in docked mode, you know, if you want to use a headset, there's not really any way to do it because the Pro Controller and the Joy-Cons don't have any sort of audio jack either. So there's a little bit of a problem with that. And then it's not even just hearing audio, it's also maybe having a headset of some sort, right? You can't really do that outside of using the Switch mobile app if you're in docked mode. So, you know, and just to be clear, you can still use the audio jack in docked mode, but you have to be right in front of it because it's with an audio jack. There's no Bluetooth technology there. So it would be nice.
Like a 10-foot cord.
Right, just 10-foot cord.
Between you and the TV, will trip over it
and break your Switch and maybe your face. Like there's, there's
super fun.
Right. I don't understand all the details behind it, but I do feel like there's a decent chance that the Bluetooth capability might even be able to fix via a patch. So even if Switch Plus comes and they do have it with that, theoretically, I think they could allow the basic Switch and Switch Lite to also do it, because there is Bluetooth technology inside the Switch already. I think they just have to patch it, but I could be wrong. There might be some sort of hardware limitation there. I do not know that for a fact.
Dang. Yeah, I mean, maybe they will do Bluetooth. I don't know.
Hopefully, right? But we've also been waiting almost 5 years for themes, so we'll see.
So true. Where are the themes? That's what I don't understand. Didn't 3DS have themes and folders? Don't forget folders as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Switch has had so many games coming and so much momentum. Like, Nintendo hasn't needed to do like those extra little things to kind of maintain momentum. And actually, you know, I think we're going to answer a few more questions, but this kind of makes me think maybe we should just talk about the Steam Valve deck first, because that is like finally maybe direct competition for the Switch. So we'll get into that momentarily. Then we'll touch on the Metroid news, and then we'll focus on Skyward Sword, and then more Q&A after that. But let me just kind of get through the chat here real quick.
And you got a super chat.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Super chat from Taker610. Thank you very much, Taker. Taker says, Mogmas are the stoner dude bros of Zelda. Okay. Mogmas, is that I don't even... Am I... Oh, right, because they're from the Skyward Sword. Okay,
Yeah, they're the
that's
guys
their
in
name
Skyward
is
Sword.
the
Yeah, in
Badger
the
people
region, yeah.
or the
Yeah.
Mole people. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting, right? Because there's
Oh, yeah,
the
mole.
Kikwis
The
and
mole.
the Mogmas. Like, where are they after Skyward Sword? There's a few other there's a Gizmo people. There's a little horses, the seahorse people. I forget their names. As I play Skyward Sword, I'm sure I'll be reminded of their actual names. But what'd you say, Kazoo?
The seahorse people. Those are Zoras.
Are they?
Yeah. Those are the Zoras of Skyward Sword.
But do they evolve into Zoras, or are they a separate species?
Evolve into, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know that those are the Zoras. Guys, I see that we have like almost 50 people watching and 15 likes on the stream. So let's bump that up, guys.
Now I now need to find out who are the fish people. They're seahorse people in Skyward Sword, but yeah, I just don't remember their names right now. I got added from Mackerel here. Metroid Prime 4 will have special first-person shooter multiplayer mode, probably a battle royale, or maybe a creature like Emmy or Ridley hunting you, or just online play. Then it'll be Game of the Year. All of those would be potentially really, really good elements. I mean, we've seen how Resident Evil has adopted the sort of chaser creature or character, and it follows you sort of perpetually throughout an overworld. To have that in Metroid Prime could be interesting, right? I do appreciate that Metroid Dread is focusing more on the suspense, dread, sort of terror element. They're moving in that direction. I think that's a great direction for Metroid because a lot of its roots come from that. I mean, it's inspired from Alien, so that was what that movie was about. So I definitely think they should continue to move in that direction. Not that there shouldn't be a lot of cool action elements and a lot of cool puzzling and platforming, like all of that's still part of Metroid, but definitely expanding upon that fear suspense element I think is also important. So, you know, taking some cues from Resident Evil wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea for the Metroid Prime series either.
Scary.
Yeah.
Having all the zombies. Put zombies in Metroid. Make the little Metroids become zombies.
Zombie Troids. Or zombie space pirates, or there's a lot you could do.
Zombie space pirate. Wow.
Well, like for example, what if they were to bring in the X-Parasite from the 2D Metroid series into the Metroid Prime series, and the X-Parasites take over dead bodies, like in Metroid Fusion, which has the X-Parasite. There are some zombie-like creatures, but they're not really a big deal. But what if they were to make them a big deal in Metroid Prime? Like, that's an option, right? Heck, even in Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, the Ing kind of corrupts some dead Federation soldiers, and they're very zombie-like. So, you know, expanding upon that it's a potential really good idea. So I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. Birdman, hello there. Thank you for modding, my friend.
Hey, Bird. What up?
I'm a sandwich. How far into Skyward Sword HD have you gotten? I think I might have mentioned earlier, but I just got into the Forest Temple. Like I did the first couple puzzles in that one, so I'm not super far yet. And because you were trying to get into the dungeon during your stream last night, but you fell just short as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm searching for all those Kikwis.
Okay, yeah, that's like the big quest right before you get into the dungeon.
Yes, and I love the Kikwis so much. They are so cute.
So
they are so cute.
I see Evil Iggy added me. They are called Perella. I'm pretty sure Hyrule Historia said they were the early Zoras. This is a reference to the seahorse people. Okay, that may be. Okay. That does sound correct.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right. I thought that they were the Zoras, but I guess they're just.
Well, I mean that they may become Zora eventually. I'm trying to see.
Some Zoras.
Do they? Maybe that's not confirmed. That's just speculated.
that's speculated.
According to Hyrule's story, the aquatic race featured in Skyward Sword was originally going to closely resemble the Zoras. However, the designers were told to go with a more primitive design, and the idea was rejected. So that's apparent.
A more primitive design because it's the first game in the timeline.
Yeah, so maybe. Anyway, just what I'm reading here doesn't necessarily confirm that they are Zoras, but maybe there's a link. I mean, if there are Zoras, and this is what the only intelligent sort of sea creature, conceivably, maybe they could evolve into Zoras. We've seen evolution. The Zora situation's weird because there's like the saltwater Zoras, and then there's the clear water Zoras, and then there's like the evil variant, and it's that's a whole other bag of worms, and I would have to refresh my knowledge on that because I don't want to spread any misinformation there. But there's definitely a lot of Zora variation over time across the different Zelda games.
Did the Zoras become the Rito, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, no, they did. In the Wind Waker, Zoras became Rito, but it's weird because it would imply that the natural evolutionary step for Zoras is Rito, but then in Breath of the Wild, there are Rito that look a little different than the normal Rito, but of course you could just argue, art style. But then there's Rito, but there's also Zora, and there are Gorons, and there's Gerudo, who supposedly went extinct in the timeline of Twilight Princess, but it does seem like Breath of the Wild is following that timeline based off Ganondorf under the castle. So it's confusing, it's misleading, there could be retcons. There's a lot of debate and speculation to be had with that. It's strange. It's strange.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is that I think that they retcon. Because they've said before, they've said that they pay attention to the timeline after they create the game. So they make the game first. They don't make the game with the timeline in mind.
No, that's correct. They don't do that.
Yeah. So that's why I think that's why none of it really makes sense.
Yeah, I see Mackerel here saying, didn't Loftlings become Rito? I don't think that's confirmed, but
no. Depending
on the timeline, maybe. But there's a huge gap in history between Loftlings and Rito. There's. But again, to Kazoo's point, Nintendo doesn't necessarily design games with a timeline in mind, and they've come up with different creatures and designs and animals in later Zelda games that weren't at all factored into the timeline or earlier Zelda games, right? So there's confusion to be had and debate, and there's other things I want to talk about tonight, so maybe we'll touch on it a little bit later, but yeah, there's debate to be had. Ronnie Fazio, do you think that Emmy and just the idea of being pursued could be a potential hint to something similar in Prime 4? It's kind of like the sky exploration of Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild 2. I don't know necessarily, right? I think it's clear that Nintendo's using Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild 2 to sort of market each other a little bit, like based off how they showed things off at E3. And there's a history of Zelda HD Remasters having links to the 3D Zelda game that's in development, but with Metroid, that development may be very separate, although there could be some communication there. There could be a potential link. And who knows, maybe at one point they intended for the follow-up to Samus Returns, Metroid Dread, not in terms of chronology, but just in terms of reality, one game to the next. And because at that point they also announced Metroid Prime 4. Maybe they had intended for those games, for Dread and Prime 4, to have a little bit of a link. But with Prime 4 being delayed, the marketing for that, there's going to be quite a big space in between, right? It seems like. So I'm not sure, but maybe some of the ideas from the initial Prime 4 will translate over, and maybe some of those ideas would be shared with Dread. We talked about it earlier a little bit. Like it makes sense to introduce more horror elements in there. So for a creature like Emmy to chase you around in a 3D Metroid game, that could potentially be really good. We've seen it work in Resident Evil. It is terrifying. So if they want to go in that direction, which I think they should, I think it's a great idea. Game walkthroughs out of me. When do you think we will get Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD? That's tough, right? Because
we've already had.
But on Switch, so it's kind of like, when do we see it on Switch? And a lot of people didn't have Wii U, right? So it's tough because you look at things like maybe Prime Trilogy, right? Supposedly that's been just locked away for a few years, and Nintendo's really just waiting at the right time to release it. They may just be saving Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD for a time when they don't have something ready. So, you know, that could mean, say, for example, Breath of the Wild 2, for whatever reason, and I do not wish this at all, but let's say Breath of the Wild 2 gets delayed even further into 2023. If that happens, then maybe they release Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD to sort of tide things over a little bit more. That I could see happening, but only if Breath of the Wild 2 is delayed. Now, another argument you can make is that maybe what if like Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be a holiday game? Something just fell, it's fine. But if Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be like the holiday game for 2022, maybe they want a Zelda game in between, because Skyward Sword, basically, this is July, right? So we're talking about almost a year and a half. Like if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out in November, it's more like not a year and a half fully, but it's like maybe 16 months or so, right? Approximately 16, 17 months, something like that. So if that's when the game comes out and it's that big of a gap, it's more than a year, maybe they want something in between that to sort of tide Zelda fans over. So maybe we do see Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD sometime next year in the early part, the first half. That's not out of the question either, right? But I think a lot of it does come down to what Nintendo has ready. Like, they don't need to rely on Zelda necessarily, right? There are other things they can do. There's a number of games that we've been waiting to hear about that we have not heard about. What is the Mario Kart ARMS team working on? What is the Monosoft team working on? What about that rumored Donkey Kong game? What about the next Kirby, the next Fire Emblem? You know, and they could pump out some other thing. Like, for example, we're getting Advance Wars and WarioWare this year. What if there are other smaller Nintendo franchises that might all of a sudden get the spotlight one random month, you know? And obviously, Pokemon's another option. There are multiple Pokemon games that can come out in a year. So there's just a lot of options, and that doesn't even account for, like, first-party, third-party stuff. I mean, exclusive third-party stuff. But what'd you say, Kazoo?
I was just gonna say that, yeah, Pokemon, though, is, it's game-free. So not necessarily like Nintendo, like, although I guess they don't really release something to compete with that.
Well, I mean, Nintendo still owns part of Pokemon, right? So Game Freak works closely with Nintendo and Pokemon Company, and so like, and there's other Pokemon games besides what Game Freak works on, right? Like we got Pokemon Snap this year, so you know there's a lot of options, right? But I mean, going back to the Game Freak situation, I do think they try and space things out a little bit, but like for example, we didn't see any major Pokemon games at E3. They decided to just wait, and we still don't know when they're going to show that off, right? I guess right now they're working on Pokemon, what's it called, Unite? That's coming out. It's releasing in like 3 days, so that's something else that you know they're going to kind of be worried about. But any point is going back to like the question. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD conceivably could come out next year, but it really just comes down to when Nintendo sees a good gap for those games. And there's just so much variance with that it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, there would be a lot, that's true. It's very true.
And there are people who also argue that maybe an Ocarina of Time HD might be in the works as well, right? So there's other potential options. And then what if we get a 2D Zelda? What if we get another Zelda spin-off? Like, there's a lot of things besides just 3D Zelda itself to be worried about.
Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, I'd love to see like a different take on that. You know, I've speculated that maybe Monosoft be working on a Zelda spin-off, but that's just more... I mean, there's concept art to maybe support that idea a little bit, but...
it could be. That's a good point, too.
Yeah, and people have argued that Monosoft's working on a new IP, but a spin-off could theoretically be a new IP, so there's just so many options. But I do think eventually we will see Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. It's just a matter of when. And I know you asked when, but I don't know. There are people who are convinced it would come out this year, like insiders. But that's because a lot of us thought Nintendo would do something special for Zelda's 35th anniversary, and they aren't really doing so much. They're doing more for Metroid, arguably, which is great. But yeah, it's tough to say. But you know, conceivably, I could see it come out early next year if there isn't too many games in the first half that Nintendo has ready.
Mhm.
But let's jump into the first actual topic now. So let's focus on this Switch versus Steam Deck situation.
Quick before we
Yeah.
do that, Verum Verby said he'd donate $4.99 if we both hold up our cats at the same time.
Okay. Onyx, do you want? He's chilling.
He's chilling.
He may come up a little bit later into the stream, but he's just kind of relaxing right now. I don't want to annoy him. So
He's so cute.
at some point he may want attention, but for now, well, at some point, Vera, maybe. But all right, I'm gonna let my cat relax for now.
Okay.
So yeah, I see. This is what's fix that later. But so let's talk about the Steam Deck situation. So I'm a Nintendo fanboy. This is a hardcore Nintendo channel. So
Oh yeah.
there is bias here. But what I want to sort of talk about is how Steam Deck could maybe potentially impact Nintendo Switch. So Steam Deck, if you don't know what it is, it's a new piece of hardware that's coming out from Valve. Now, Valve is a company that's behind Steam. If you have a computer, you can probably play games on Steam, and it's a huge platform for games. And you know, they've developed some games before. You may have heard of Half-Life. So you know, Valve is definitely, or Portal. I love Portal. But you know, Valve is behind this, and it's because for that reason alone, because Valve is behind this, Steam Deck should be perhaps taken more seriously than other things, right? It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's exactly like the Google Stadia situation, but because of how big and successful Google is, people have paid more attention to Google Stadia, right? Now, Stadia may not become as successful as some people may want it to be, right? Valve could potentially be more successful than that because Valve has been in the games industry for quite some time and been successful in it. So it's a different situation in that regard. But Valve is a respected sort of company that can get the job done. They've done it before. So with Steam Deck, it looks like a Nintendo Switch, right? There's a screen in the middle. It has controls on the sides with a few other extra little things like some haptic pads and things like that. It has extra bumpers. It's more catered for perhaps PC play, because that's what it is. It's a PC in a Switch-like form factor, a little bit bigger than a Switch, but it's very powerful. In terms of like teraflops, it's around PS4, but it is also focused on playing games in a not 720p exactly, but a close to a 720p resolution. I think it's 1280 by like 800 or something like that. 720p is 1280 by 720, so it's close. But okay. It's similar in power there, but there is, you know, some differences in perhaps the way it's sort of put together and the efficiency of it all, that it does push a little bit harder than what a PS4 can do. But to have that as a mobile technology, it's very interesting because it can run pretty much a lot of big AAA games that are coming, and it can run them pretty well. And it has a dock that is sold separately. That you can use that to plug into a screen and play games. I haven't seen like a traditional Pro-like controller, but I'm sure there's already probably one available for Steam, and you probably could even somehow connect your PS4 or any PlayStation or Xbox controller, or even a Stadia controller. Like, the way the Steam Deck has been made, I think it has like an open sort of like setup, so it's not just Valve software that can run on this. It's a computer, so pretty much anything. A PC, basically. Pretty much anything can run on here, so you don't even have to use the Steam operating system, which it does come with, to play games or run applications on here. This is basically a portable computer, which is like a laptop, right? But it's in the form factor of a Nintendo Switch, and it's going to play games. So, you know, there's a lot there. It's very powerful. It's doing what a lot of people perhaps wanted for the rumored Switch Pro, which Nintendo did not give us, right? We're getting Switch OLED instead, which is not really a more powerful Switch. It's just a Switch with a better screen. So there's been some conversation about this, right? And people are arguing, oh, well, Steam Deck is what we've been wanting. The Steam Deck is a big deal. It's way more powerful than the Switch. Is it going to impact sales in any way? I'm not going to give my opinion yet, because I want you to kind of have the floor here and tell me what you think. Yeah, you.
Yeah, no. Well, I guess considering there's no one else here, you know, no, I don't think that it will, because it's a different market. Nintendo's like doing their own thing. Maybe like if it were PlayStation and Xbox, then maybe it would. But like if PlayStation and Xbox had their version of the Switch, they had that over here, and then you got the Steam Deck over here. I don't think that the Steam Deck will impact in any way the Nintendo Switch. Like, the games on it are totally different. Yeah, it's portable and it can dock, so I'm sure they got the idea. Hey, it's War Unicorn! Sorry. I guess, like, I think they definitely got their idea from Nintendo, but
Sure.
obviously their machine is a whole lot more powerful. I think it's also like $150 more than the baseline Switch, isn't it? It's 50.
I have a. So there's three different pricing SKUs. So there's a $400 Steam Deck, which comes with a carrying case. So it has a carrying case in there, which is neat. But then there's a $530 variant that has 256 gigabytes of an SSD. So it's far faster storage than the base model, which has 64. So it's faster storage, still a carrying case, and also apparently exclusive Steam Community Profile bundle. But there's another variant that is 512 gigabytes of an SSD, so faster storage, but also a premium anti-glare etched glass, exclusive carrying case, and still the Steam Community Profile bundle, and also exclusive virtual keyboard theme. So there's a $400 variation, there's a $530, and there's a $650. So the pricing escalates quite a bit. And what's fascinating is that they have SSD storage on the more expensive models. So it does make me wonder, how well will the loading and the storage be in general with the base model? Is it going to be kind of sluggish, right? And I don't know if we've had enough hands-on. Well, that's another thing to consider as well. How will battery life be? Because this is going to be a very powerful device for that form factor.
Yeah.
But another thing to consider here is that it doesn't come with a dock, right? There is a dock, but it's going to be sold separately. No, it's sold separately. The dock is sold separately. So you have to buy that separately. So the base model is $400. The storage space is 64 gigabytes, and I don't know how fast that'll be, right? There's better versions that will have far faster storage with the 530 and 650 models. There's no dock in that's bundled in, and there's no Pro controller or anything like that bundled in either. You get the tablet, you get this. You get this, and the controllers don't come out. They're not like Joy-Cons. It's just one thing, right? It's basically like a giant PS Vita, really, with more PC controls on there. And there's a lot of things that can connect to it, right? And it has the ability to dock and do things like that, but the dock is sold separately. I think you could buy third-party docks, though, so you don't necessarily have to buy like the one from Valve, so that does offer a lot of options for people. But I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that the Switch, the base version, is a $300 system, and yes, it's been out since 2017, right? But it's a system that comes with a grip, so you can take these Joy-Cons off, which you can't do on the Steam one, and put it in as a normal traditional controller, but also does come with a dock, right? So that docking option, that switching capability, all comes at $300. This Steam Deck doesn't have that yet, even at $400, right? Granted, it's way more powerful. There's a lot of things you can do with it. It's an open sort of software, so there's a lot you can do there. And if you are into PC gaming and you want a more portable option, this is absolutely for you, right? If you want a Switch-like experience, right, but you can play more expensive, bigger, ambitious third-party games that run well, then maybe Steam Deck is for you, right? But it's not going to be something that I think is mainstream, to your point, Kazoo. It's not going to really impact Nintendo's market too much. I think the games, if you look at the software sales,
they don't make Nintendo games.
Right, exactly. The strongest software sales on Switch are Nintendo games. There are some exceptions, right? But it's not to say that other games don't sell well on Switch. They do. But a lot of those games are smaller games, indie games. There are some third-party games that have come over to Switch, but they aren't the only reasons people are playing Switch, right? It's all of it that kind of comes together. The form factor, the fact that it does come with a dock, right? Being able to do that all right outside of the box, having local multiplayer co-op right outside of the box. All of this adds more mainstream appeal to the Switch, and there's just so much momentum right now. You switch your camera. There's just so much momentum right now that Nintendo has, and there are games. Oh, I see. That's adorable. But it's just, there's so much that's kind of going for the Switch right now. I have a hard time seeing this system really impacting that. Not to mention, there is a history here of powerful handhelds coming out in a similar sort of time frame as Nintendo's handheld, and people are like, oh, this is way more powerful, it's going to run better looking games and things like that, this is going to impact Nintendo's market share, and every time it has not been the case. Literally every time. Perhaps the most competitive handheld against Nintendo there ever has been is the PlayStation Portable, the first PlayStation Portable, the PSP. And the DS still went on to sell over 150 million systems. So the DS is still Nintendo's best-selling piece of hardware ever. So I don't think this is going to be a big problem for Switch. But it is another exciting product that's out there for gamers that they may want to try out, and it may be good for them, right? So I'm not trying to say that the Steam Deck is a bad product at all. It's just I don't see it impacting Nintendo too much. Kazoo, are you still there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just lost your camera.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll fix it though.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so, Steam Deck, I don't think it's going to impact Nintendo too much. However, Nintendo may start to feel some pressure because there is that potential that some of the market share could be stolen somewhat, right? A little bit. Not like to a degree where the Switch is going to stop selling, but maybe it's enough to the point where Nintendo might feel just a little bit more pressure to start kind of doing things to improve their situation, right? Because you look at the Switch OLED, people were disappointed about it. It's cool, but it's not for everyone. It's not a more powerful system, and maybe Nintendo feels like they can get away with that now. But with things like Steam Deck, maybe Nintendo might feel a little bit more pressure to bring out a more powerful variant of the Switch in the future. Maybe, or maybe they're gonna be like, nah, we'll be fine, and we'll bring it out in 2023, and we don't care that there's another powerful Switch-like device, because there's actually a whole bunch of devices out there that are very similar to Switch. They were out there before Switch. Nvidia had the Nvidia Shield. That's basically what.
That's what.
Yeah.
I was gonna talk about that too.
Go on.
The Nvidia Shield.
Yeah, go do it.
What's that?
Yeah. What do you make of that?
Yeah. No, I don't think that it's. Oh, I'm dumb. Okay. Well, all I had to do was turn it on. I was like trying to switch the camera. Anyway.
You fixed it.
Anyway. Yes. The Nvidia Shield. I mean, it was a product, but it wasn't an issue for Nintendo at all, and they even used Nvidia chips in their Switch. So I don't think that was an issue, and I don't think that the Steam Deck is going to be an issue either, because it's just like I said, like you said, two different markets.
Yeah, I think sometimes people might. I think the argument that can be made though is that the cheapest variant of the Steam Deck is $400, and that is close to Switch OLED, which is at $350. Sure.
Yeah.
But also, what you're getting in those packages are pretty different, right? If you want to talk about it from that, you could argue, well, there's Switch Lite at $200, and that is kind of a similar sort of amount of stuff that comes in there compared to the $400 version of the Steam Deck. Obviously, it's way more powerful and it has all of that potential, but there's no controller that comes in there. There's no dock that comes in there, right? Granted, the Switch Lite doesn't even have that potential. It's a portable Switch, and that's all it's gonna be. But there's price factors here, right? Like if you're talking about people who want a portable, cheap, affordable gaming device, that's going to be the Switch Lite. It's not going to be the Steam Deck. Now, that $400 though, if people want a portable experience that offers the premier AAA third-party games, like there are going to be some people that will want that, and they may not want to Switch because the Switch doesn't offer that really. So there is that to consider. But even if a Switch Pro did come out, how many exclusive games would there be? So I don't even know if it even really matters for Nintendo to have come out with a Switch Pro, because they can make the games that are on the Switch now look better and have maybe a better graphical option in 4K or something. And maybe there could be a couple exclusives, but it's not like it's going to be able to run every game on Steam as the Steam Deck will, right? So it's a difference there. And I think most people play Switch to have a portable gaming experience that's relatively affordable and play Nintendo games. And it's the form factor of it being able to dock and undock. Like I think that's the biggest selling point, and I don't think Steam Deck really takes away from that too much.
Yeah, I mean, like if you think about what kind of people are gonna want to be playing portable games, like do you really think of the high-end PC gamer? No. I mean, I guess you could say that maybe that's just because there was never a product that existed that would allow the PC gamers to have portable experiences, but I don't think that the PC people are the people who want to play portable.
Right. And it was funny. The other day, and by the other day I mean last night, I was watching a video from 2007. It was Apple's conference when they were finally announcing the first iPhone. And it was and Steve Jobs was out there on stage, and it was fascinating because he was talking about how this was going to be a big revolutionary product, and he was right, because iPhone changed everything, right? It sort of spearheaded this big sort of actual smartphone movement with with just entire touchscreens for the main interface, and iPhone is the best-selling smart device out there, and it's not the most powerful, right? Because there are more powerful devices out there that can do a whole bunch of things that iPhones can't do, but they have sort of like, similar to the Switch situation with its sort of industry, iPhone has a brand awareness. People know what it is. Like, oh, that's Apple, that's iPhone, that's what it is. There is more of a simplicity to it. People kind of get it. And even though it may not be as powerful as other options out there, at the same price structure, like iPhone still outperforms in terms of sales. And I think it's a similar situation to the Nintendo, because they have strong brand awareness, they have strong software, but the devices aren't necessarily that powerful, and they're just focused on being affordable, actually. But what were you gonna say, Kazoo?
I was just agreeing with you. Like they are. Yeah, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. But let's check on the chat real quick, and then we'll move on. Unless there's anything else you want to add in terms of the Steam Deck situation.
Oh, and Nintendo, it's like you were saying, Apple, they dominate the smartphone market for all the reasons that you listed. Nintendo also dominates the handheld situation.
Right.
The handheld realm, because no other company can do what Nintendo does with handhelds. Also, I was gonna say I was also watching an old video today.
Yeah.
Older video today. Yes, Andreas.
You're talking about the Q&A from 2017.
I am talking about the Q&A from 2017.
That was when there was an eclipse. Yeah, that was a while back.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminded me of like when I first started YouTube. Did you start in 2017? What year did you start doing YouTube?
Technically, my channel started in 2016, but I started taking it a little bit more seriously in 2017.
Okay. Yeah, so see, I was 2017 as well. I mean, I started my channel. I made my channel so that I could make comments and stuff in like 2011. But my first stream, actually, I just had my 4-year stream anniversary the other day, so I was 2017 as well. But like one of my first vlogs was of the eclipse and like about the eclipse.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was cool to see seeing your Q&A. It reminded me of that, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I wouldn't mind there being another eclipse. But let's check in with the chat here. So, Birdman, it's a big version of the Switch Lite. Nintendo Love Girl, what do you like better, Nintendo or PlayStation? Well, I don't know if that was specifically for me, but I did Nintendo. I do use my PlayStation a lot, though. So I'm almost done playing Resident Evil Village, but I only kind of play it with a couple friends when they're available. So I had a few different segments. I think we're near the end of Resident Evil Village. I'm kind of excited to finish that at some point.
Spooky.
Yeah, we're at the part where we're in like a mining factory. It's not I forget what it is. It's a factory of some sort where things are being manufactured. It's very dark and there's robotic things everywhere and it's scary.
That sounds like it could be a Metroid game.
That could be at least an area in a Metroid game, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Frank Caves, I would use a Steam Deck for my Steam library and an emulation machine for retro consoles. It can run Windows, possibly able to put OBS on it and stream from it. Theoretically, yeah, because I mean it's basically a PC it's a PC inside the form factor of something similar to a Switch. So
that would be insane.
It's not out of the question.
That would actually be really interesting.
Right, so there's a lot of things you can do with it. I think that if you look at it as a PC in a Switch form factor, it's easier to understand what Valve is going for.
Steam Deck was like people were talking about on Twitter and stuff. I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like a Stream Deck? Like I have a Stream Deck.
Yeah, there's gonna be some confusion there.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. Ronnie Fazio, the battery life of the Valve deck won't be the best. I have to imagine that it's going to be very challenging to have a nice quality battery life. If you think the Switch's battery life is bad, I don't be surprised to see the Steam Deck be even worse. But we'll see. Maybe they get like some sort of super battery in there, but you know, it's not easy to do that.
Like I would always a lot of the times, like back when I was in college and stuff, I would go take my Switch with me. I would just be like, oh, okay, gonna like randomly have a picnic for some reason, and I would take my Switch, of course, because
right,
because it was right when Breath of the Wild released, and just like sit there and play it for like hours, and then be like, oh, your battery's about to die, and I would be like, no.
Yeah, but then some people would probably have like some sort of backup battery USB charger.
True.
So there are options for sure, or there could be peripherals that you just plug it into and it can charge the battery, right? Like they have that for the Switch, and it also acts as like an additional sort of handle for it. A lot of people feel like the Switch isn't necessarily like the most ergonomic, and I kind of agree with that to an extent. So getting like a grip on there that also charges, like there are accessories like that. And it wouldn't shock me if there are accessories like that for the Steam Deck in the future.
That thing is pretty cool. Yeah, it's not the most ergonomic. I don't think that it's bad, but it's. I can definitely see why some people might.
When I've had extended play sessions with my Switch in handheld mode, my hands get a little numb the way I hold it. But I've also never felt the actual need to buy a grip. But you know, some people do.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I never saw the need to buy a grip.
Yeah, but Let's now talk a little bit about Metroid, so then we can move on to Skyward Sword. So a couple different Metroid things already. We already kind of touched on it earlier. Jeff Grubb was on another podcast and basically said that Metroid Prime Trilogy, Nintendo just kind of waiting for the right time to release it. Goes back to our conversation about Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. It really just comes down to timing, but also with Prime Trilogy, it also comes down to timing in relation to marketing Metroid Prime 4. This is nothing really new. This is things we've talked about in the past. It's just kind of like, hey, this is maybe still a thing. I totally agree. Sometimes it seems like, oh, well, it's been years, right? But also Metroid Prime 4 restarted development, so it's gonna take years. Then also COVID happened.
Like 2 years ago, I think, at least. Right.
And then COVID happened as well, and that pushed things up even more so. So, all of this delays and pushes things up, right? When the restart happened, that could delay things by 2 to 4 years, right? And then you factor in COVID, that could be another year, maybe a year and a half, maybe 1 to 2 years is my point. So like if you consider it, when you factor in both COVID and the restart for Prime 4, things are pushed up 3 to 5 years theoretically, right? So if we were expecting Prime Trilogy to be announced at Game Awards 2018, was not announced then for maybe like an early 2019 release or something, then, maybe we don't see it until 2022 at the earliest, which would be early next year. Maybe it happens then, but maybe we have to wait a little bit longer, right? So we'll see with that. But yeah, that it's going to take a little bit. I know years ago, Eiji Aonuma teased Skyward Sword HD, and guess what we're talking about today? Skyward Sword HD on Switch and how we've enjoyed the first few hours of the game. So, sometimes it just takes time for these things to come to fruition, but eventually it will happen.
What a segue that was.
What?
What a great segue that was to talking about Skyward Sword.
Except we're not actually segueing. That's great. The thing is, all of these topics always sort of relate to each other, so there's always good potential segue points. But we gotta talk about Metroid Dread though, because we got Metroid Dread Volume 3, well, Metroid Dread Report Volume 3, and we got some interesting tidbits from this report. I'm trying to see if I have it up on here. I do. So let me just kind of share it for you guys so you guys can see it. I had a video on it a couple days ago. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's on the channel. But let me see here. Info. There we go. So there's quite a few different things that came out from this report. So, one of it's just kind of talking about Samus, but an interesting point that is made is that Samus's suit has been changing. So it's different from the way it looked in Fusion. It's implying there's some sort of evolution maybe going on here, or growth. Basically, she's slowly regaining her initial form. She has the shoulder pads now again. So I guess you could argue she's kind of recovering from the initial attack from the X-Parasite at the beginning of Fusion. But there's some other things. They talk about Metroids, but they also talk about how Metroids are supposedly extinct. However, to deal with the X-Parasite, Samus got a vaccine made from Metroid DNA, and it was infused with her DNA, and that helped her combat the X-Parasite, and she's been slowly recovering from that. But what's interesting is that Metroids are now dead. However, here they say, the name Metroid comes from the Chozo word meaning ultimate warrior. And who is the character that they refer to as the most powerful warrior in the universe? Samus. So, Samus has Metroid DNA now, right? The Metroids are dead. Supposedly. But
Metroids are dead. Why
Metroid means ultimate warrior. What if the final Metroid is Samus herself?
Oh, Samus fights Samus.
So I'm not saying that Samus becomes like a jellyfish, but part of her is a Metroid. That is a fact. So, there's something to that. Now, I feel like there could still be actual Metroids somehow, because it's Metroid, but maybe the idea is that she carries on the legacy of the Chozo, who created the Metroids, which have helped her to sustain herself and survive and be the galaxy's greatest warrior, which is what Metroid means, ultimate warrior.
Wait, Metroid means ultimate warrior? So...
Yeah.
So
according to the
thought
Chozo.
Samus was the Ultimate Warrior.
That's the speculation, right?
Okay.
So
Metroid
initially the
means-
Metroids were designed to combat against the X-Parasite. They were like the only thing in existence that could fight against the X-Parasite. But through time, Samus has started to fight them, and the Metroids have gone extinct supposedly. And with the fusion, she was given Metroid DNA, and that helped her combat the X-Parasite. But now, Metroids are maybe extinct, but the game's still called Metroid, and Samus is a powerful warrior, and Metroid means Ultimate Warrior according to the Chozo. So, I don't know, I think there's definitely going to be some play on that, but at the same time, it wouldn't shock me if we actually still see Metroid to some extent, later on in Dread.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, you can probably tell I don't really know a whole lot about Metroid because I've never played Metroid before.
Are you going to play Dread?
What?
You're going to play Dread?
Maybe. I don't know.
Do it.
It's
Have you ever played any sort of Metroidvania?
Have I ever? No.
So have you never played anything like Hollow Knight or like Ori or like Castlevania?
No.
Maybe you should try Metroid Dread.
I've never tried anything Metroidvania actually. So,
I'm gonna be campaigning now until October for you to try Metroid Dread.
Oh, for me to try Metroid Dread?
I'm gonna be campaigning all for the rest of the year for you to play Metroid Dread. But anyway, just kind of continuing on here, right? They also talk about how they've improved the maps, right? You can use highlights. You can see different terrain. The map's more advanced. One neat little thing here is that even in main gameplay, you can actually press a button to expand the minimap a little bit and not actually jump into the main map itself, just so you can see a little bit more. So that's pretty neat. It does look like they've been kind of working on the map system a little bit. So that's exciting. Going beyond that, they show a few other things here. They also confirmed that Chozo are still alive. It was thought that Chozo were extinct, but apparently Chozo are still around to some extent. They're just very few and far between, and they like to hide. So that's interesting. It literally says it right here. Now only a few of them have been sighted, and these remaining Chozo mostly try to avoid attention. So that's fascinating. It kind of confirms that Chozo-looking character in the trailer is a real Chozo and alive. Well, not necessarily, but probably. So we may finally see an actual face-to-face interaction between Samus and a Chozo, which we've been sort of waiting for, hoping for the entire Metroid series. It may finally happen. And then they talk about the X-Parasites a little bit. And this is just my personal speculation. I'm going to get back to camera now. But with the X-Parasite, I think there could be something going on with maybe the Emmy there. Now, supposedly, the Federation sent the Emmy to find the X-Parasites. And I know the Emmy aren't necessarily like organic creatures, so maybe the X-Parasite can't control them. But what if the X-Parasite mutated to the point where it can? Or what if the Emmy has something organic within them so they can be corrupted or sort of, controlled? Or what if there's something controlling the Emmy and the X-Parasite controls that? So that's a possibility. The other possibility, though, is that maybe the Federation has tricked Samus based off the events of Fusion, where maybe Samus did something the Federation didn't like, and they're trying to get rid of Samus through the Emmy on this planet.
Government.
The what?
Is the Federation like the government?
Kinda, yeah.
Is it space government?
Pretty much.
It's the government trying to control Samus, man.
Yeah. There could be some of that in there. She's too powerful, so they want to get rid of her. That's not impossible. So there could be the way Fusion is left off. It isn't like for sure said that Samus and the Federation aren't going to work together anymore. I mean, I think based off the premise of Dread, like Samus is actually the Federation asked Samus to go and check this out, right? So there is like still a working relationship supposedly, but I think the end of Fusion could possibly create some strain, and maybe the Federation, has something to do with these corrupted Emmy, or it could be something else. It's a mystery, right? So we're trying to figure it out here, but
the government's behind it. That's what would make the most sense.
Maybe, right? And it is supposed to be like a bit of a finale for the Metroid story. It's not to say that there won't be more Metroid games after this, but in terms of this story arc, there could be an end there. So it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens in Dread. But anyway, I guess the big bullet points here is that Chozo are not extinct, and there could be something to this idea of Samus being the final Metroid, because she is arguably the universe's greatest warrior, and the Chozo call the greatest warrior Metroid. So there could be something there. Ronnie Fazio added me. The character from Smash Bros. That everyone thought was Metroid is now technically a Metroid. It all comes full circle. It's good to see Samus coming back full force, right? It is kind of funny how that people have always confused Metroid to be Samus herself, but technically she has Metroid DNA, so calling her a Metroid isn't necessarily wrong, especially when you consider the Chozo translation of it meaning Ultimate Warrior. So it is funny how it's kind of come full circle like that.
When do you think that they made that up? Like, made up that the Chozo, that Metroid means Ultimate Warrior in Chozo?
I have no idea, actually. That could be old lore. I don't know.
I bet they made that up recently. I mean, I
maybe.
don't know.
If someone in the chat knows, let me know. But it was the first time I heard of it. It wouldn't. I don't know. It could be something from
Shout outs to Dust Prog. He's one of my viewers. So shout outs to you, Dust Prog.
Actually, it might be something. It might be from an older time. Yeah, no, it's been around. The definition of Metroid meaning Ultimate Warrior and Chozo has been something that's been around from before. I'm seeing an article from 2 years ago here, so I don't know how long. I don't remember which game that came from, but it's been a thing. But I guess that doesn't necessarily take away from the value of it. Actually, it just sort of supports the idea that there's been a plan for Metroid Dread, because they've had a story in mind and concepts in mind for Metroid Dread for like over 15 years, and they've just had the project canceled a couple different times. So it's not crazy. I think a lot of what's happening in Dread was sort of planned from a long time ago, and now we're just gonna kind of see it all come to fruition.
I'm sure that's the case. I just think that this is probably true of a lot of games, but they probably didn't have that in mind, like, from the beginning. I'm sure that's the case with a lot of stories in general, that they just kind of retconned it, you know what I mean? Like,
that happens a lot.
We were talking about the Zelda timeline,
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, Samus, there has always been a connection between Samus and the Metroid creature. So one, the Chozo infused Samus with their DNA. The Chozo created the Metroid. So the Chozo have a role in both entities, the Metroid creatures and Samus herself. But then also in Super Metroid, actually, it happens in Samus in Metroid 2. Samus chances upon a baby Metroid, and the baby Metroid thinks of Samus as her mother. Even though it was her job to kill off all the Metroids, she refused to kill that one final Metroid, which is tested upon in Super Metroid. And spoiler, the baby Metroid that thinks of Samus as her mother from Metroid 2 is a Super Metroid, and it saves Samus in that game. And then there's a lot of, I don't want to spoil everything, but it's an old game. Super Metroid dies, and a lot of its essence is kind of splashed upon Samus. So there's already like a big Metroid connection there, but then in Fusion, she gets attacked by the X-Parasite, but then they actually put in Metroid DNA and infuse it into her, and then she actually has DNA that is Metroid inside of her, right? So there's been this long story of the Metroid and Samus being closely intertwined. So it's been a build up to this, so it wouldn't shock me if there is a direction they kind of go with of her being considered the final Metroid or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see.
She's the final Metroid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That was funny. But
Cringe.
let's move on to Skyward Sword, because I know that's specifically what you wanted to talk about today. We've been playing it. How is the game? Is it great? I think it's great. There are some things that we can sort of pick at for sure. But Skyward Sword was always a really good game. So now we're just seeing kind of an enhanced version of it. Granted, it's been 10 years, so almost 10 years, like 9.5. But it's now been modernized to some extent. How do you feel about Skyward Sword HD so far?
I have this here with me. This is the original box, obviously, and so I have this, and I also have this, which is, Andres, you probably know.
Oh yeah, I got two.
I'm sure you do. This was the first special edition of a video game I ever got, and this is it was $70, which I'm sure it would not be $70 now. And I thought it was so expensive. I was like, wow, that's pretty expensive. But it came with the game. It came with a CD for the 25th anniversary, and it came with the gold Wiimote, which I also still have. But yes, I saved this box for 10 years because I am a loser. Yes, there it is. Boom shakalaka.
Yeah, it is interesting. That's a really good deal because it came with the soundtrack disc, which back then, there was some value to that. A cool gold box. I actually really like the new game case. It's very nice. It has a lot of color to it.
Yeah, I like it better, honestly. I think it's better. But as you guys know, this came out for the 25th anniversary.
Did you notice in the Skyward Sword story, it's like a 25th anniversary?
I'm getting to it all. Okay. I'm getting there. It was so cool because they have when you're playing through, I think it's either Instructor Horwell or Instructor Allen. They say that it's the 25th anniversary of the Knight Academy in the very beginning, and I had totally forgotten about that when I played it on stream for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. But they really should have, I think that they should have changed it for this release, because
for the 35th anniversary.
For the 35th, they should have said it's the 35th anniversary. That would have been so epic.
I definitely thought about that too. It's like, oh, what if they had changed it? But at the same time, it's only relevant the year, during that year, right? If you played Skyward Sword after 2011, it wouldn't have mattered. But the thing was, with Skyward Sword's initial release, it had the whole 25th anniversary marketing behind it, right?
It did.
Nintendo isn't really marketing the 35th anniversary at all.
That is true too, yeah.
And I mean, the other thing is that, well, that's a pretty simple change. You just change a number in there, right? They haven't changed a lot about Skyward Sword in terms of the content, right? They've changed how you play with the game, but they haven't done too much with the actual content of the game, it seems.
Of course you have Fee saying if you have a certain amiibo, you can travel to the sky at will.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I could not find, by the way. I tried to pick one up. I couldn't.
I actually didn't look for it, but
I mean, I heard there was a big delay with a lot of shipments, right? So tomorrow I might stop by a couple stores before work and see if I can pick one up again. But it definitely there was quite a drop off there. But I want to talk to you about the controls. I see here Frank K is saying I don't like holding the L button to look around. So I've been playing around with the controls and trying to come up with the ideal sort of way to play the game for me, right? And what I'm sort of realizing is that I don't think this is necessarily an ideal way. I think I'm going to play in different ways depending on what I'm doing. But when you play in button mode, in order to look around to use a free camera, which was not a part of the main game, you don't really need it at all, right? It's just a nice little thing. You could just use the center camera button and you'll get by just fine, because that's exactly how the initial game played, right? So you can make the argument that even though you may hate how they implemented the free camera, It's only in addition to something that already worked. So you don't actually need it.
True.
But
That's
when I
true.
played Skyward Sword back then, I did miss it. I did want a free camera to look around more freely and explore the world and kind of see more angles and just enjoy it more. That's how I felt back then, and I'm really happy that they have it. But there is a bit of an awkwardness to pressing the L button to look around. Is it game breaking? No, it's not game breaking. It's maybe something you just have to kind of get used to a little bit. But I'll tell you that there's something about the timing too, because every time I kind of like press L to move the camera and I let go of the L button, I swing my sword, and I don't intend on swinging my sword because it's the same control, right? The analog stick controls both the sword play and the camera movement. So it's interesting that it's like that, and it wouldn't surprise me if Nintendo adds some sort of patch to give you a little bit more customization to how that works. They may not, but you know, it is a little awkward. So I'll say that, but it's not enough to deter me from not playing with button controls. It's fine. It's kind of comfortable, right? Like if I'm just kind of like playing it as I'm about to go to bed, I'm just kind of like snuggling up, trying to play a little bit before I pass out. Or if I'm playing in portable mode, I'm going to play with button controls, right? But I'll also say that when I play with the motion controls, it feels a little bit more natural. Everything just kind of works well for me. Granted, I did play the initial Skyward Sword, so I kind of already understand some things about it, but it all works fine for me, right? And there were actually things in the button control mode that I had to sort of adjust to make it feel a little bit more natural. So for example, when I was flying the Loftwing, I actually didn't like how I was controlling in button mode. I had to invert the control stick for flying because it just felt really weird.
I did that too. Yeah, I inverted the y-axis.
And once I did that, it felt a lot more natural at that point, right? But I'll tell you that when I played the flying controls with the Joy-Cons, it was more seamless of a transition for me. Like I just kind of did it and it worked. Hey, look at that sword.
See, like this, because I said that I was going to do that, but it doesn't work because you can't, like, I don't know, you can't really, like, you have to like hit hard. You can't just go like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better for flicking.
Yeah.
But it does, I mean, the Joy-Con does do a good job of tracking your movement, which is nice. But I guess you can also argue that when you're playing in motion control mode, you do have to do the centering, but the centering is just pressing the Y button. It's not that complicated. There are elements that I feel like I might enjoy more in button control mode. For example, aiming around is a little bit better, especially if you do use like the gyro aiming. So you can use the analog stick in conjunction with the gyro aiming, kind of like Splatoon. That feels pretty nice to me. I kind of like that because it is true that whenever you do the aiming in in motion control mode, you have to recenter it pretty much every time, which just requires a button press. But you know, it's that extra little step that maybe takes away from your immersion a little bit. So you could argue that there's inadequacies on both ends of the touch controls or button control mode. I see what you're doing there with your sword.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that I was gonna like the motion or the button controls. I thought I might like them a little bit better than I did, but I don't know. Hopefully it makes more people realize what an epic game Skyward Sword is.
Yeah. Just looking at the chat here, I see some people making points. Sweet Life of Dio Brando. I think Skyward Sword was made for motion controls. It absolutely was.
Yeah.
That's how it was designed. So, you know, you could argue that that's how it's just gonna naturally feel better for that, right? But there were sacrifices they made to do that. For example, not having a free roaming camera, which is something we were accustomed to from previous Zelda games. So it was something that was missed. So the fact that they've added it back is great, and the fact that you have it with the Joy-Cons is awesome. So like that's kind of an enhancement for the motion control mode, right? So that's nice, and also it being 60 frames per second, that one-to-one motion, or it kind of reads a little better. It feels a little smoother. So you know, it kind of works a little bit for that. I see Frank Caves is saying here, to be fair, there are gyro camera controls. Yes, there are gyro camera controls. So in theory, you could play with a Pro Controller, not press the L button, and just rely on moving your camera around, your camera around through motion, and still just use the sword attacks with your stick. I could play around that with a little bit more. I tried it. I wasn't know how I was really feeling it too much. And there's an inherent limitation with how you move around your wrists and the motion for the camera as opposed to like using a stick to do it, right? And I also think a lot of it comes down to playstyle, right? So when I play third-person action-adventure games, as I'm playing, the entire time, I'm not just moving the left stick. I move the right stick and the left stick in conjunction the entire time. So, like, if you watch me play a game, that my camera is always moving a little bit. I'm always kind of like doing panning shots, looking behind me, looking at my periphery, kind of absorbing the environment. So, because I'm having that constant movement, I kind of miss it when I don't have it. And it's something you can get used to. I got through Skyward Sword, it was fine. And I still have it in Skyward Sword HD, it's just I can't do it at the same time as I'm using the sword controls. So that element right there in motion feels better for me. But, you know, maybe if I did get used to the motion controls or the gyro controls and button mode for the camera, that might be the best of both worlds, assuming that worked. But I'm not sure it really does, not in the way I personally like it. But maybe I have to take more time with it. But, you know, I'm still mostly playing in button control mode, and I'm getting used to things. I'll also say that it's been a little bit of a transition for me to get used to using the sword attacks with a stick as well. So, like, because if you're let's say you're fighting an enemy, right, you're going to go, like, left, right, or you're going to try and do a bunch of things. Yeah. And it can, especially with the enemies, they block a lot of things. You might start flailing your stick a little bit. And if you're doing that, you're going to end up doing a lot of spin attacks, because left, right is to do the spin attack, or up, down is to do the vertical spin attack, and you're going to waste your stamina. So I've been running to that issue a little bit. But what I realized is that what you have to do is, instead of, you know, keeping your thumb on the entire time you're doing attacks, it should actually be flicks. So flick, like, and you're always letting go of the stick every sword swipe. When you do it like that, it makes more sense. But if you're keeping your thumb on there, it's more like a connected sort of thing, and you're going to start inadvertently doing more of the spin attacks that you may not intend to do during your different duels with enemies. So that's been a little bit of a kind of a getting used to for me personally.
Same, yeah. I'm not really a big fan of the button controls, to be honest.
Okay.
I thought that I was gonna like them more than I did. But oh well. But
yeah,
I like, obviously I still like the game, so it's my favorite Zelda game.
That is a nice sword you have there.
Oh yeah, thanks. Plastic.
I'm curious how the swimming parts will be. I haven't gone to the swimming parts yet. So I know a lot of people did not like using motion controls to swim. I haven't gone to that part.
It'll probably be similar to the Loftwing parts.
Right. Well, I've heard people have more issues with the swimming part from the initial Skyward Sword than the flying part. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works in that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that they could have just mapped it to the stick and it would have been fine, you know? It's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know how they've done that part. I haven't heard about that part yet. But it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of plays out.
Yeah, I don't know who's actually gotten to the Lake Floria part.
Yeah, so when that happens, I'll let you guys know how I feel about it.
Lake Floria's epic.
Nintendo, I wonder why they never used the cool lighting system they developed for Wind Waker HD for Skyward Sword HD. It would have been very different looking, for sure.
Yeah, not cel shaded.
I'll tell you that I think the game looks really nice. Like, playing it in HD, I don't feel like it's aged poorly, really, at all. I know I saw some reviews that highlighted how the trees are very simplistic, but you don't really notice that too much, at least from what I've played so far. Everything looks very clean. Everything looks very smooth and vibrant. I don't really have an issue with how the game looks. the game holds up really well with what's already there. Now, yeah, it doesn't seem like they maybe have worked on the visuals as much as previous HD remasters, but it still looks really good to me. It still holds up really well. Maybe there are more subtle changes than we realize, besides just an upscale to HD, because it looks very, very clean. It holds up really, really well. The colors are very vibrant. I don't feel like I'm playing a game that is like on Nintendo Wii. It feels like it holds up better than that. Now, I'm not saying it looks and feels like a modern game necessarily, but I'm not running around thinking, man, this game looks ugly, or man, this game looks dated. Most of the time, I'm like, oh, this looks quite pleasant. Like, a lot of the game I still find is very aesthetically pleasing. And I do think that just the HD rework they did, which may be minimal compared to other HD remasters for the Zelda series, still does a great job. And when you factor in the 60 frames per second, when you play the game in motion, when you see it, and it feels very fluid, it feels, I mean, really nice. I mean, that's just kind of the thing with 60 frames per second. It makes games feel more, I like saying more real. There's something about it that just seems a little bit more organic. There's a little bit more fluid to it. And it goes a long ways, in my opinion.
Maybe the reason that it seems that way, like, it seems like they didn't do that much with the remaster, is because it came out in 2011, and that was basically right before everything switched over to HD. Like, I think, from what I remember, I don't, at least for video games, like, I don't think too many things were like HD, but I think maybe that's why it seems like there wasn't that much done to the visuals, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they definitely had developed the game with HD assets. That's absolutely true. Like, there were screenshots that they released that looked amazing back when, in the lead up to the release of the initial Skyward Sword. Those were HD images. But that version of the game did not exist. Those are like PC versions of the game. And basically that's kind of like what we're getting now. And it looks really nice. So because the game was sort of designed with, no, I don't want to say with HD in mind, but they did develop with HD assets. And when you output the game in 1080p, it looks really good. It holds up well. The only thing that you could really argue doesn't hold up are like the polygon counts. Or the level of detail. It's maybe more simplistic, but it's not even like that bad. So it holds up fairly well, I would say. Not like, it doesn't look like a modern game necessarily, but for me, as I said earlier, everything still feels very aesthetically pleasing, and I'm not having moments where I'm like, it doesn't work.
I didn't get any of those kind of moments either. I think you got a super chat.
I did.
My gosh, yes.
Killer
Sweet
BK123. Thank you very much, my friend. How you doing?
Sweet Live of Dio Brando. I agree with you 1,000,000%. Groose in HD. He is just hot.
Him and that pompadour.
WT. Hot. HD Groose. That's what I'm talking about, bro.
Yeah, it's kind of funny seeing him. He is an endearing character, right?
Groose is the bomb. Like, even before he was, like, nice. Spoiler alert. Even before he was nice. Still. Groose, listen here, guys. He has the slickest pompadour in town.
He has the only pompadour in town.
So by default.
Yeah. But have you just going beyond the controls though? How have you felt about your experience with Skyward Sword HD so far, Kazoo?
I've thought that it was pretty good. It was a pretty good experience. I mean, I got through the tutorial and then I started the first quest in Farron. So I am not very far, but I've definitely enjoyed my time with it, because it's I guess it's not my first time playing it, of course, but
Sure.
with a lot of these HD remakes, it's my first time playing it, but this one, not the case. But yeah, I've been having fun. What about you?
I love the game. It's great. Like, again, you know, me figuring out like how the controls work is best for me. Like, there is some annoyances there, but there are options, like, so you can kind of play around with that. I think for some people that may be also a little bit of an annoyance, right? So I'll say that when you look at the critical reception of the game, you see how like it's not reviewed as well. I kind of see that, right? Like I see where people are coming from that, but I also don't feel like the game is bad by any stretch. It's still a great game. It's still very enjoyable, and that's totally fine. You know, well, when I say it's totally fine, I'm not saying that the control issues are totally fine. I think there probably could have been slightly better ways to do everything, you know? And I will say that I feel like it would have been nice if maybe they put a little bit more work into this. But I do feel like at one point they perhaps were thinking that the gap between Skyward Sword HD and Breath of the Wild 2 wasn't going to be that big. And because of that, you know, maybe they didn't plan to put as much resources into this remaster as they might have, say, for example, with Wind Waker HD. But also the issue is that
that's a good point.
But yeah,
because the gap between Wind Waker HD and you know, Breath of the Wild, that was obviously, well, it was only 2 years. It was 2 years.
Wind Waker HD came out 2013.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4 years. Yeah.
Twilight Princess HD, however, was a year removed from Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Yeah, and that had a lot of work done actually, because they redid all the textures.
That was a fun game, Twilight Princess.
But Twilight Princess was outsourced. I mean, so was Skyward Sword. I think they were both done by Tantalus actually. So.
Oh, Tantalus.
Yeah.
Tantalizing.
I don't know. So there are some elements of Skyward Sword HD that I wish maybe they would have done a little bit more work with. Like maybe it would have been nice if they did put a few more things to do in the sky area, for example. Maybe they could have worked on the visuals a little bit more. Although I still feel like they hold up relatively well. But again, they did sort of integrate an entire other sort of control setup with the button controls. They did sort of seamlessly transition the motion controls. But there are, as we've been talking about, there are some awkward elements to both setups, neither of which are breaking, neither of which take away too much from the experience, but they are worth mentioning, right? As we're discussing, they do impact things a little bit. You could make the argument that for the button controls, that had they just not added the free camera, people wouldn't have noticed the free camera awkwardness between doing the L bumper and not, and it would have been fine because the game played without it. But I'm happy they added it, because to me that adds a lot more to the game, being able to sort of roam around, look with that. But as I'm playing through the game, I'm getting more used to timing when I use the free camera and when I don't. It's just because I'm personally used to using a free camera movement throughout most of my games all the time, like simultaneously, that playing Skyward Sword, you don't necessarily do it all the time, but I still use it in conjunction with centering the camera and using first person mode to look around. So there's 3 different ways to kind of look around. And I'm using all of them together. And it's just kind of that balancing act, figuring that out.
Yeah. So the first time I did this, like on stream, the first time I played Skyward Sword HD, I was like walking forward, you know, and then on instinct I just started doing this, and I noticed the camera was moving, and I was like, what happened? I was like, was this in the first game? Like, I did not
No,
see...
but it should have been.
Yeah.
But they were limited because the Wii only had one control stick, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why.
Right, they weren't able to do it because motion controls.
The nunchuck.
I have it right here. Like, you just don't have that many options. You move around with this, and then there's nothing. Maybe the D-pad, but there's not even that many buttons, right? So they need to assign things to all the different buttons. Yeah. So they just didn't have a lot of options with the Wiimote nunchuck. But that's not really an issue with the Joy-Cons. There's way more buttons, though. I see a question here. Killa BK, did I miss a Metroid update? So there was another update for Metroid Dread. So like every 2 weeks on the Nintendo/Metroid website, they kind of put another report out there, kind of telling you a little bit more about the lore and the history of Metroid, and they kind of insert some more details about the game. Like this time around for Metroid Dread, they sort of told you a little bit more about how the map works and how you have a lot more options with the map. It's bigger, you can zoom in and out, you can kind of see. You can, even during the main gameplay, you can kind of zoom in on it on the map. Or you can just go into the map screen itself, and you can place like highlights and things like that. So in terms of gameplay, that's pretty much it. Everything else is kind of like telling people about the history of Metroid and some lore stuff, like how Chozo are alive and not like dead. So things of that nature that were sort of touched on. Beyond that, there hasn't been too much of a big Metroid update. However, there has been another rumor coming from a journalist called Jeff Grubb that Metroid Prime Trilogy HD is still a thing. It will come out eventually. It's just kind of coming down to when Nintendo wants to put that out there.
It's interesting. That Metroid Prime Trilogy, that might be one that I might play, because that would be starting from the beginning. Metroid Dread, I feel like I would come in the middle.
Well, I mean, a big part of the Metroid Dread marketing is that they're trying to tell people is that, yes, there's this history here, which is why maybe you should check out the different reports, because it's kind of interesting to learn about. But you don't need any of that to play Metroid Dread. Like, there will be sort of like an intro early on that tells you everything that you need to know for the game. So you can jump into Metroid Dread without having played any previous Metroid game. There won't be a problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're ending the end of the discussion, guys. So if there's anything else you guys want to sort of talk about or bring up, put it out in the chat now, and we'll be closing things out. iSonic added me. The swinging without motion controls is just holding A and moving with the left stick. The swinging without motion controls is just holding A. What?
Oh, really? Is that true? So you hold. You hold.
The swinging without motion controls is just holding A and moving the left stick.
The right stick. The right stick is motion controls.
I don't know what A means. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think I understood the point.
I think A is the face button.
Yeah, I will tell you that I did have some issues doing the jump attack, but you can just...
Yeah.
Because at first I thought you had to do... Because when you hold the camera and you can do your different like side jumps and backward jumps, when you press forward A, you would do the jump forward, but you need to do the attack to actually hit, to do the forward jump slash. I thought you had to use the flick of the stick after holding ZL and then pressing A, but you actually can just press A twice, and it does the forward slash. So you don't have to flick the stick or use a forward motion with your control stick to work. Oh, for swimming. Okay, yeah, because I saw it was referring to swimming from earlier. Okay.
Oh, swimming. Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, the jump attack, you just press A twice, as opposed to pressing A and then flicking a stick, or pressing A and flicking a controller. So just press A twice and you can still do the jump attack just fine. Once to get you into the air, and the other to do the slash. Rush87. I remember playing Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword 6 or 7 years ago. It was such an experience with emotion, an excellent experience. Saludos desde Argentina. Well, thank you for watching from Argentina. Yeah.
Saludos, amigo.
Yeah, I will say that if you're looking for like one of the more ambitious motion control games, it is Skyward Sword, right? In terms of offerings from Nintendo, that's probably going to be the biggest, best motion control experience you're going to get from Nintendo. It's going to be Skyward. If you're looking for like an epic adventure game that's with motion controls, that is Skyward Sword. That's what it is. Or you play Half-Life Alyx if you want like a motion control VR game. But that's not on Nintendo.
Nah. Skyward Sword's where it's at, bro.
Yeah. Frank Case, thanks for the stream, you two. I subscribed to both of you today. Thank you for subscribing. For sure. On that note, guys, do make sure to check out Kazoo's channel. Her channel is linked in the description below.
you guys. Thanks very much. And thanks so much for having me tonight, Andres. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's always good having you. It has been a while, right? It's been like maybe a year almost since the last time you were on.
Over a year, yeah. Probably over a year. Actually, just about a year.
About, right?
Yeah.
About. I actually got another question here from KillaBK. Guys, if you have questions, this is the last couple moments.
Yes.
But KillaBK, do you think the Steam Deck, do you think the Steam Deck should have had a dock to monitor feature that turned your monitor into a full functioning PC on monitor like the Switch, or do you think that is something patented by Nintendo? I mean, there is a dock, but it's just sold separately. But if you mean like so I don't know how well the Steam Deck works. Like, is it a seamless transition like the Switch? I might have missed that in the hands-on. I didn't see that. I saw it already plugged in, so I don't know how much of a delay there is when you plug in the dock. But there is a dock. It just doesn't come in the initial package. You have to buy it separately. It will be interesting to see how seamless of a transition that would be, because there could be some patents involved that would probably make it harder for Valve to do it. But you know how it is with these companies. There are workarounds to establish similar technologies, right? Like I mentioned earlier when I was watching that initial sort of iPhone reveal, they talked about how they patented the hell out of multi-touch, but it doesn't mean iPhone is the only company that has multi-touch screens, right? Like there are ways around that.
Oh, ways around. Oh.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how that is because that's not my field, but it's going to be interesting to see how seamless of a transition that'll be for the Steam Deck. It wouldn't surprise me if it's less seamless. So, because the Switch, it's all about switching, right? And the dock comes in the package. Steam Deck doesn't even have the dock in the package. It's something that's bought separately, so you can connect it to a monitor and plug in other things like a mouse and keyboard and things like that, so you can have more of a PC-like experience, or like just putting the Steam Deck experience on a bigger screen. I definitely want to see how easy of a transition that'll be.
I have a question for you, Andres.
Yeah.
How's your cat doing?
He's just chilling. He's kind of.
Oh, okay.
He's just there.
Baby. He's so cute.
Yeah. I'm not. I know you guys want me to hold him, but I don't want to bother him. So I'm gonna let him relax.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. No worries.
The thing is, if I grab him, then he's gonna want to climb up my shoulder and get on here. And I'm just gonna, I actually like it when he doesn't bother me during the stream, because then it gets distracting. So right now he's being a good boy, so I don't want to encourage him to like get on top of me. Like, if that happens, it's not a big deal. It's just, I'm not gonna encourage it. And right now he's calm and relaxed, so I'm not gonna disturb him.
Man, I wish you would crawl on me, but I mean, she's surprisingly, she's chilling in her bed under my desk, so that's honestly surprising. Yo, Ancient Oracle, I see you, my friend. I see you.
Yeah. Dan Hegarty and Ancient Oracle both subscribed. Thank you for the subscriptions, for sure.
Thank you guys very much for that. I saw that Frank said that he did too, so that's epic.
Nice.
But it's interesting. Ancient Oracle, she just followed me on Twitter today, so that was pretty epic.
Cool. So I see Birdman is asking, when is the next bet? So if you don't know what that could be alluding to, I'll tell you. So on the channel, we've done 2 bets already this year. Earlier in the year, I put out a bet that at the end of February, shortly after the February Nintendo Direct, that there would be a Pokemon Presents, and that it would reveal Gen 4 remakes. And that came in the form of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. And they will be coming out this year, and that's all true. So we got that bet correct, and if I was going to be wrong, I would have had to have done Naked Snow Angels. Didn't have to do that, thankfully. However, there was another bet I put out later on, and I decided to get really dangerous. And I knew that this is a big risk. But, part of the reason why we do the bets is not because I'm so confident that they'll happen, although there's an element of that, But it's also just because, well, it would be fun if I was wrong, because there's the price I have to pay. So the next bet I did was predicting, and incorrectly, I predicted that Breath of the Wild 2 and a Switch Pro would come out this year by the end of the year. Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out 2022. Switch Pro, well, there is a Switch variant that came out, Switch OLED, which was part of the reports. So there was some conflation there with the reports of there being a 4K system. So they got that a little bit mixed up, but maybe that's coming later down the line, or maybe that's just them confusing Nintendo's R&D for the next-gen system, or maybe they simply changed their plans because Nintendo does that all the time. But anyway, the prediction isn't entirely right. So what happened? I went ahead and I worked with a couple of friends, and we made dubious food from an actual sort of like approximation of dubious food from Zelda, and I had to eat it. I had to eat the dubious food, and we recorded it. There is a video on the channel of me eating dubious food, and that was because I was wrong about Breath of the Wild 2's release date year. So, when will be the next bet? Well, I think it kind of comes down to So I don't want to continue to get things wrong, right? So it has to be something where I feel like there's a debate about whether it's going to happen or not, and I get to a point of where I feel like I have enough evidence to support my claim. And at that point, I'll be like, all right, this is what I'm thinking, guys. This is my speculation. This is why I think that. Here are the counter arguments. But if I'm wrong, I will do this, right? Like, so there will be another bet. But right now, I do not know what that bet would be. I'm not going to tell you Metroid Prime Trilogy HD next year. Maybe. Maybe.
Birdman just said that too.
I don't know if that's going to be my prediction. Like, I am thinking that, right? Like, it is a prediction. I just don't know if I'm ready to put the bet down for that. But that is a strong consideration. Yeah, you can see my cat in the background. He's trying to escape. But I'm not going to let him out quite yet.
No escaping for you, sir.
What are you doing, Onyx? What are you up to?
For your Onyx.
Hey. Come.
Does he really come to you?
Sometimes. Come.
Does he really come to you?
Oh. There he is.
Hi, Onyx.
He's trying to climb the back. Oh, careful, buddy. Careful, buddy.
Hi, baby.
Hey, your claws are dangerous. Okay.
How dangerous.
Here. You guys wanted to see him on stream. Here he is.
Hi, baby. Yeah, someone said earlier that they would donate $4.99 if we both held our cats up at the same time.
Well, hold your cat then. They may not be watching, but it's fine.
I know they're probably not watching still. Okay, hold on. Okay, ow, my foot is asleep. So that's epic. Come on, Cappy.
Yeah, this guy kind of holds on to me like a monkey.
Oh, who's a big girl?
Yeah. So there we are, we're holding our cats. Oh boy. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. He likes to get up high and then his claws get into things. Alright, now he's trying to like cuddle with me and claw at the same time, so that's the thing. Alright, buddy.
It's a whole thing, huh?
Get down. No. Yeah, so he's up there now.
Hey, no biting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't intend on it becoming a cat dog, but there he is. So, yeah.
He's our little Nintendo cat.
Yeah.
Nintendo cat.
So, Amber Abalama. I hope I got that right. Metroid Prime 4 trailer within a year. Maybe, actually. that would be. See, these are all like plausible things that I might be willing to make a bet on, but it's also like I think the other thing is that when I do these bets, there's also like dude. See, that's the other thing. The claws are getting into the chair, but this chair is also pretty old. Like it's fine. But anyway, with these bets in terms of like trying to predict or estimate when we're gonna learn about something, when I've done them, we kind of knew when we would learn about it, right? So when I did the Pokemon Presents prediction, I did it maybe like a few weeks in advance, because the deadline was the end of February, and I did it in the middle of February. And then for the Breath of the Wild one, I did it a few months in advance, but the deadline was basically June for E3. So, you know,
it was basically between directs.
Right, so like,
look at you, you're so cute.
So, you know, if I had to like put one, I would need like a deadline that's maybe a little bit closer, more immediate. Because, yeah, I could say, oh, yeah, I'm going to put out a bet that Prime 4 is going to be shown off by E3 2022. That could happen. Like, that's a pretty good bet, but it's also, like, almost a year in advance. So I feel like there needs to be a little bit more of an immediate thing. So maybe, like, it would be something that I would want, that I feel confident about we'll see by the September Direct, for example. Right? Like, maybe I'd put out a bet that we will see the Donkey Kong revealed by September of this year.
Yes.
Or sometime in September of this year. Now that I'm not that confident about, right? I do believe the Donkey Kong game is real. I do think it's coming to Nintendo Switch. I do think it's deep into development. And I think we'll probably learn about it in less than a year. I think that's all true. That doesn't mean they're going to show it off in a September Nintendo Direct. They could wait till like a February or March Direct. They could wait till E3 next year. The game could get delayed and it comes out in 2023. Like, you know, there's a lot of like possibilities there. So I would need a little bit more evidence on my end before I jump into that prediction, but maybe, right? So there just basically needs to be a little bit of a more immediate sort of time window there. Yeah, Onyx owns the chair now. Yeah. Oh, I see a Verum Verbi made good on the promise. As promised, it was worth the wait. By the way, I'm really loving Skyward Sword HD. It was the only Zelda game I didn't finish because of the controls. Well, thank you very much for the super tap, Verum Verbi. The cats have come on screen. And yeah, Skyward Sword HD is pretty awesome. I'm glad that you're enjoying it with the button controls now. So, you know, there are a lot of people that didn't get through Skyward Sword because of the motion controls. So the fact that there are button controls for those who just can't get around that, it'll work for them. Even if there is maybe a semi awkwardness with that free camera, but it is something that I think you can get over pretty fairly easily, I should say. Yeah, that cat. Are you gonna go down now, buddy? You going down? Okay. Look, he's gonna use my shoulder to come back down. Nope. Don't use my head as a platform. Don't use my head as a Nope. Don't do that either. Come on. Nope. This is why I didn't want to encourage him to come on, because of his claws.
Yeah.
It's, again, this chair is old. I just don't want to encourage bad behavior.
Right.
So that's the thing. I'll have to probably take him off a little bit later because he's like fastened.
Yeah. He's fastened in there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, they do that. They tend to do that, don't they? Oh, Cappy, can you please not be a jerk right now? Come on, honey.
Yeah, let's see. Steven, all bets are off. OLED not pro. Yeah. Skyward Sword, a Bosch Zelda anniversary. Bring back Reggie. This is never a flight on his watch. I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I do agree. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I kind of do agree with him on the Reggie. On it too.
I wouldn't mind if Reggie came back. That would be cool. But
so
he's
cool.
retired. He's retired.
But here's the thing. Oh, Cappy. Well, you gotta leave. Bye, Cappy. I love you. You can't get out though. No. Here's the thing. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't really think that the motion controls are worse than they were 10 years ago. That's what Steven said earlier. I don't know if you saw that. But, I mean, why are they worse? I don't, doesn't seem like that to me at least, so.
Yeah, I don't know if they're worse. There are some things that I think are better, and there are some things that are worse. Now, the reason people might be saying Skyward Sword HD controls are worse is because there's no longer an IR sensor anymore. So back on the Wii, if your setup allowed for it, right, and your Wiimote would catch the IR bar, it would recenter on its own without you having to do it. So it would make the experience a bit more seamless. However, I'll also tell you, and you have to go back and play Skyward Sword on Wii. While yes, the game would sometimes repair itself or resync because this would catch the sensor bar. If your setup allowed for it, sometimes you might be away from it to not really facilitate that. But there was another issue. Sometimes you played too much, you would have to do this. You would have to put your controller down and leave it there for a few moments before it recenter.
Yeah.
Every time I played out the Joy-Cons, I've never had that issue. What you have to do instead is, I'm pulling them out just because, like, that's not even necessary, but what you have to do instead is you're playing like this and you go into aim mode and all of a sudden your cursor's like at the top right of the screen as opposed to the center. What you do is you press Y. It recenters. It's very quick and easy. Do I like that you have to do that? No, because it is kind of like, oh, my cursor's off. It is annoying, but it's a super quick and easy, simple fix. Back on the Wii, sometimes it would uncenter and you would have to take a moment to stop and recenter things. That would happen occasionally. I'm not saying all the time, but if you're just about to start playing again, things like that, that would all occur. So I don't know if I would straight up say that the motion controls are worse on Switch.
No.
And also, you can use the camera freely now. Like, because there are more buttons, you can do more on the Switch version than you could do on the Wii version. So
exactly,
I don't think I agree that controls are worse on Switch than they were on Wii. Not to mention 60 frames per second will probably also, I mean, I'm still early on, but that does kind of make the game a little bit easier to sort of like grip and play for a lot of people because it's a more smooth experience with the motion controls, I would say. So yeah, I'm not sure I would agree. But the press Y every time thing is something that I agree is annoying, but I don't know if that's enough to say that it's worse because there are things that are better. But you know, it does come down to preference there. So, how you doing?
X. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. Hi, baby. He's cute. I love him.
Yeah, he's also dangerous. He has claws. You gonna come down now? Come down now and don't jump on my neck for support. You might. Okay. No.
Come
on. Don't claw it. Don't claw it. See, he's also like just gripping so he doesn't fall. See, he's about to fall. Here, buddy. Here, let me get you. Let me grab you. Come on. Let me grab you. Come on. I got you. It's okay. I got you.
Good boy.
There we go. You're fine.
Yeah, good baby.
Yeah.
Aww.
But
so cute.
yeah, I think we've pretty much reached the conclusion of the evening and the discussion. I mean, definitely we could debate motion controls all night, for sure. Varum Verby, motion control's got to be better now, but I won't know until I finish Skyward Sword with the Pro controller. Yeah, I mean, it is something that I'm kind of exploring with both, right? You got to go back and play the Wii version. Like, there were issues with the Wii version initially too, so there's just different kinds of issues now, but there are also things that are better. So I'm just not gonna say it's inherently worse, but there are things that are better and there are things that are worse. Like, it's a mixed bag, and I think it comes down to preference. I do like your conclusion, Varum. Cats are great. Yes, cats can be great, but they also can be dangerous with their claws. So.
Oh, the little danger.
Yeah.
The little danger noodle.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, guys, make sure to check out Kazoo. Her channel is linked in the description below. We'll be playing Skyward Sword HD.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys, for thanks in advance, or not in advance if you already done it, but yeah, for checking out my channel. really appreciate it, guys. I post like unboxing vlogs. I've been doing those lately, and then video game live streams. I've also been posting shorts lately, like clips from the streams. So those are pretty fun. You should look at those. And then yes, I look forward. Thanks for having me on tonight, Andres, and I look forward to hopefully coming back again at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe less than a year from now, maybe sooner.
Maybe.
Yeah, right.
I hope so.
But yeah. Anyways, guys, have a good one. We'll see you soon. Take care.